literally finding your podcast was like perfect timing. Like I can't even express to you and like how helpful that was. And it wasn't even like recent at the like it was an older one at the time, I think, but I like still listened to it. And so I really hope that everyone goes to listen to that because it really gives like not even just like the empowerment of like, hey, like you can change your situation, but like how to go about it.
To kick things off, if you don't mind, just go ahead and share your name and your job title, and maybe just a little bit about sort of what you're up to in the Salesforce world.
Yeah, so my name is Brittany, and I'm a sales operations coordinator, pretty much an admin at my job now, really trying to like dive deep into like user experience and making like processes more like efficient and just kind of improving like the experience of using the software overall.
So I'll ask you, I mean, I'm sure like people who are watching, they're like, okay, well, cool, that's great. Salesforce professional, excited about their career. Why are we here? I'll jump right in. Can you tell me a little bit about what's happened most recently for you from a career perspective and how you've found success?
Started working at like a tech company, but in sales, but more so like prospecting. And it was not my favorite thing to do, but I was really good at it. I surpassed my goals. But it just took a toll just prospecting and more of like a relationship builder. But the technology, like the tools, like our Salesforce was hardly configured. It wasn't user friendly. There were a lot of bumps. No one really knew how to use it like at all. Like when you're in sales, like you know, your money comes from like commission. But when the tools that you're using aren't efficient, it makes it really hard to do your job. And so what I did to kind of show like my interest in like Salesforce was kind of like let like a manager know and like the teams I was working with, like, hey, like, you know, there's more efficient ways to do this because we would actually export data out into spreadsheets to then share with the team. Kind of transition. I was like, I don't want to keep like figuring out things. I'm early in my career, which is like fine. But I was like, I really want to do something that means something to me. Because like we all go to work and you spend like a third of your life working. So it needs to be like worth it. You know, I want to feel good about it. I like to feel just happy and energized in general. I don't want to go to work and not feel good. Like I want to feel like I'm, you know, doing something with purpose, something I enjoy, and like others are getting something back from what I'm doing. I started looking more into Salesforce since I was creating like, you know, all these reports, and I didn't really actually know at the time that you could actually be like an admin, like a CRM admin, which sounds so crazy, but I didn't know that could be someone's like sole job just because like that's something I did with like other things I was doing at a different job. So I didn't know that that was even possible. And so it was actually because of your podcast I realized like, oh, like you can do that. And
It's really cool because it came together for you. And I'll say like the theme I heard and all of that is like you were always advocating for not only yourself, but what you felt like was going to be best for the team. Even if you got pushback, like you continued to adjust your talk track and try to find a way to advocate. And I think that's a really cool theme. And then you brought together, even if you don't have 20 years of experience in the industry, you had that those transitional skills or transferable skills that I think a lot of people don't realize they have. That, hey, I work in sales. How does that transition into technology or business operations roles like Salesforce administrator, right? And I think that goes for a lot of people who work in, like you said, like you work with some data when you were working in public health, or people who work in support. It's like the same thing, like marketing or support or even finance or any part of the business where you're impacted. Your company already has Salesforce. You start hearing about Salesforce outside of work, realizing the potential it has for companies. Of course, I'm sure you're on Trailhead and working through some things and really realizing like, oh, we can do a lot here that we don't do. And I think if I sort of just get my hands in this, create some dashboards and reports and show what we can do if we had good data, that we could actually flip things around for selfishly for my department, and sales could have a easier life as end users. And then, yeah, I think naturally moving into that administrator role, once you realize like, oh, this is a full-time job, like I can do this as like the job, that is really cool to be able to make that transition. what sets you apart is that you didn't take no for an answer, but you did it in a non-aggressive way, right? You did it instead of in a way of saying like, no, we have to do this. This is what I think is best. Instead, you just showed them how it's impactful and how it can be beneficial and how it really is a positive impact for the company. And that if you show that change over time, people start to go, okay, maybe there could be something here. And when you're the person bringing it up, you're the clear person who should be in that role. And how did you first hear about Talent Stacker?
Yeah, so actually, it was so weird. I was looking for podcasts like on Spotify. I always listen to podcasts. Like I'll do like spa days or spa nights, and I'll listen to like a podcast, which is not relaxing at all. So I was just looking up like Salesforce. Yeah, maximizing your career acceleration. I believe that was the one. I saved it and I sent it to my friends actually after that because I was like, you guys might not even know what Salesforce is, but um, it was empowering in the sense that I've always believed that you're like the captain of your own ship, but sometimes like within like a job, like it doesn't feel that way. You're not always in an environment that supports that. And so if you are that kind of person, like you have to make it happen like regardless. Like you can't just be idle or like let things happen. Like no matter like how like difficult it can be. But literally finding your podcast was like perfect timing. Like I can't even express to you and like how helpful that was. And that wasn't even like recent at the like it was an older one at the time, I think, but I like still listened to it. And so I really hope that everyone goes to listen to that because it really gives like not even just like the empowerment of like, hey, like you can change your situation, but like how to go about it.
So you find out about Talent Stacker through a podcast. We've heard so much of the story about where you started, where you've made it. What do you feel? Because I'm honestly interested in this question. What do you feel about Talent Stacker made this easier, more achievable, made you more confident in achieving this? Like, what was it about that training that made you feel more confident in getting to the success point that you're at today, which is still, as you know, just the beginning?
That's a great question. Because honestly, at first, I didn't even like decide to purchase the program when I first heard about it. I think it took me a few months from that podcast. I don't think I joined until like the end of May. Um, but I realized like, okay, like I've yeah, like I've had success before, but it was more so like, okay, this like that community aspect. I felt like I was missing like that community aspect, the like kind of like more laid out like structure, but it wasn't just the structure with Talent Stacker isn't just about like learning, it's about like true like career development, like as you're branding it. And so like kind of like step by step, like okay, like you need to learn, you need to get these skills, but you also have to like be able to speak about, these skills and be able to interview, be able to write a resume, like a cover letter, like get your LinkedIn together, have some confidence. Also, I think like the confidence was like a big piece for me, but like, it's like a whole community of people who are essentially going through the same thing. And even if it wasn't about Salesforce, it's like having that community where you are being able to like interact with and like meet people like even just outside of like the website. Like I'm connected to so many people on LinkedIn from Talent Stacker, but it's like you can learn from them. So you can already learn from like, just trailhead like community, of course, but like you have people that like I've never met them before, but it's like you can send them like a message on like LinkedIn or like within just wherever. Like there are people that I meet with on a weekly basis, like on Google Meets that I've met within Talent Stacker. And so it's like that sense of community, sense of like, okay, like, hey, like I went through the program, like I've done it, like tips, tricks, or like just kind of like it helps you see what is possible. And I think having that vision of what others have accomplished and like how they got there, hearing people speak about how like they didn't pass the admin exam the first time, or oh, I was new completely to the to Salesforce, like they'd never even used it before, and then to see like where they are like success wise, or even
Mm-hmm.
like the podcast, like I remember listening to one of your podcasts, and this guy, like his first Salesforce job, I think he said he made like 60K, and then like a year later, like taking 120K. Like that doesn't happen without like being intentional. And so
Hmm.
having like a space that basically like, because you can find spaces anywhere, but it's kind of different here because like everyone is really like pushing you to be great and be like your best self. It's kind of like, there's no just, oh, we'll see what happens. It's like, no, like you can do this. Like, here's how to do it. You just have to follow through. And there's so much encouragement along the way. Like, because there's other like courses and other resources you can find, of course, online, but they don't have that same community aspect. And it's like totally worth it because it's not just like, okay, you pass the admin exam, it's over. It's like, no, like this is like, to me, it's kind of like for life. Like you just keep shooting for the stars, like you keep developing, you keep like anything is possible. And so even with like, okay, like if you want to be a consultant or you want to like start your own thing, like you can do that too. It's like it gives more than just like, oh, we're learning. It's like, no, we're developing, we're being able to live the lives that we want to live, being the captain of your own ship, of course, like, just being able to like to take control. So like I know like a lot of people don't like hearing about like empowerment, but like I think it's beautiful. Like when other people like pour into you or you're able to pour into other people like regularly and continuously, and it's everyone's pretty much engaged in this, like it's special and like that helps propel you like forward. Like I think one of my this is so cheesy, but one of my favorite quotes that I learned from like a mentor, he'd said like if you want to go like fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, like go together. And you're gonna go far because you don't really have a choice but to be successful with all the support around you. So
It's true. It is true. It's like when you put your energy into something and you do that consistently, you can't help it. Like you can't help but end up in a better spot just because you're focused. Like, and that's, I guess that's what focus is. It's like pouring your energy into something consistently. And you're right. The community, I think, is my favorite part of all of this. And that took time to develop. In year one, there was a community, but it wasn't as, I think impactful. But now I think, where we are today, it's like it's everything. And the thing about community though, is that you can talk to one member and community has no impact for them. And you can talk to someone else and community is everything for their success. And the thing about community is that if you don't lean into it, it won't do anything for you because it can be there and you can choose not to be a part of it. And if you're not a part of it, then you will see no impact from it. But if you give, and I think to me, that's what community is. It's when you have more people giving than taking, you end up with an abundance. And when you have a community with abundance, that's when you have something really, really cool. And I think because we have more people like you in jobs that have had the success that, yes, they're still learning and growing, but they've had a lot of success already and they can help other people, even with those little nudges. But when you get those little nudges from 10 different people, it makes a big impact and really keeps people pushing forward in a number of ways, whether that's dealing with a personal situation or a limiting belief or just a thought about, I don't know if I can do this, all the way to specific certification questions to try to get a better understanding of a concept. Segueing into certifications, we talk a lot about, I'm sure you've heard, I've always felt, and it was actually one of the catalysts that caused me to really take this talent stacker thing seriously, or really career development for people seriously. Um, it was that there were so many people talking about how you have to get certified. And if you can't get a job, then you just have to get more certifications because that's all there is. And there's so many people following that. And I think I'm interested to hear how this panned out for you, and I guess your opinions too. Because I can hear it already in your story, and I hope other people can hear that too, that you are not where you are, and maybe you'll tell me I'm wrong, because of your certification count. And I think you are a prime example of showing, yes, a certification can lend credibility and it can say, okay, like you must know something that people who are not certified do not know. And I think it shows a certain dedication to the craft of like, okay, yeah, you say you want to help with Salesforce, but you're also doing things outside of work with training that tell me truly you are serious about helping with Salesforce. So now that I have that benchmark, that's great. But if you had 10 certifications or 20, that doesn't really tell me much more outside of the first one or two, other than, yeah, you do things outside of work and you train and you care about this product and your craft. But I can hear you, the way you talk, the way you interview, the way you advocate, the way you're communicating about not a dashboard from a technical ability perspective. You're communicating about a dashboard from an ability to help a company go from not having an effective use of Salesforce to having a more effective use of Salesforce. And that's not something you learn in a certification. It's not about the people, it's about the technology. And you're talking so much about the people and the company. So I would be interested in your take, that balance of just outright, how many certifications did you have when you went into this role and what were they? And then how do you balance that certifications versus other ancillary skills, abilities, those kind of things?
Yeah, so I only have one certification. It's actually the associate certification. So I'm not even a certified admin yet to come, still working towards it, of course. And I was kind of hesitant, like, is this gonna work out with just this? Being able to just kind of like take a step back, because I honestly like I'd seen so many people post about like certifications. And I was like, okay, am I ever gonna even get my foot in the door somewhere until I get the admin cert? And like I didn't want to wait that long. And I was like, I know this platform really well. Like I want to have something for credibility so people can see that I am serious and I am working towards something. But I was like, I can't like spend my whole entire like all my free time like trying to like just pass exams when I don't know if
That's
I'm even
it. That's the mindset. I think you're on top of it. I think you said it all, and that it's so much more holistic than how many certifications can I put on my resume. I honestly think if there's one thing people could take away from this, it's that Salesforce is a platform, it's a tool. Companies use it to improve really the company's buying it because they want to see improved revenue and profits, right? And when the company sees improved revenue and profits, you guys see improved raises and teams getting hired and your voice is being heard and more tools being added that can make your life easier as end users. And it's not about passing the next certification test. It's about allowing your word empowered, allowing a department, a group of users, a management team, a company to be empowered by using this tool. And yeah, I get it. Like it's a company, it's out here to make money and do all the things, but real people work at that company. And once again, from you, a third of their life, they're going to spend sitting in here 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, maybe even more, uh, spending time in this. So, yeah, it's a company that's for profit and trying to make money, but it's also people's real day in, day out life. And if we can make that easier and we can make that smoother and make it better and put more smiles on people's faces because their jobs are easier because we were able to take a tool and make it really, really useful for them, then we can do way more than just be certified admins or just be 10x certified or just be technical architects. Like it's way bigger than those certification titles. And it's so much more about the actual impact we have on people. At least for me, it is. And it sounds like for you, that's true too. All right, last question. What advice would you have there's so many people out there that, to the topic we just went over, I got 3 certifications, but I can't get a job. I applied for 1,000 jobs, but I never get a call back. There's all the things that happen, and it's a reality for people. What advice would you have for people who are aspiring to land that first Salesforce job and they're in the middle of the mud right now and they're not sure if they're climbing out of it or if they're climbing deeper into it? And I guess what advice would you have for those individuals to move forward and find success like you have?
lean into like what you're really good at, like how you can bring value. And everyone has something different. And so if you're like really good with understanding like the hierarchy, which still like blows my mind, and like security or just like user experience or just like you're really heavy into sales or like service, like whatever it is, like I would say like lean into that because you'll be able to craft your resume like really well about it. Change like your LinkedIn. You'll be able to sound confident and feel confident about like going into that interview or like having your resume like this is the one, or even being able to like network with people on LinkedIn to kind of like showcase your skill set. Because I don't think, I mean, of course we never know, but if it wasn't for me like leaning more so into the reports and dashboards, I don't think I would have made it to this point. And that wasn't really something that before I would have thought of as like, oh, this is such a huge Salesforce need, but like those things exist for a reason because they bring value to companies. And now I'm using reports in ways now that I wasn't when I was like a sales like user. Now I'm running reports to kind of like troubleshoot issues we're having to see like were they actually fixed, like what's actually going on, or is it affecting other things. But I'm kind of like the go-to for that now because like, hey, you've ran these really cool reports, can you do this, or we tried to run this and like we're not really getting the information we need, do you know how to run this report? So now I'm like creating custom report types and being able to use cross filters and add in like summaries and formulas. And this is kind of like, okay, that may not have been like the most glamorous, like, oh, everybody loves flows right now and like AI, but being able to lean into what I was good at got me here. Like it doesn't have to be the same, way that everyone else brings value or what like the status quo is or the typical default. Like lean into like what you bring as an individual because that's gonna set you apart and that's special for sure. At least I think so. So